if you're feeling like a lump on a log, or meaner than a junkyard dog. You've got questions, well I do too. Come on and join the solution revolution. There's answers for me and you. Yeah, there's answers that we can use. Come on and join the solution revolution.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Mender Online. My name is Leo Battenhausen. Appreciate you joining my segment again here on YouTube. I'm here today to talk about how our children's mental capacities and motivation and emotional health is being significantly affected by overuse of video games and technology. I wrote about this in Social Side, How America is Loving Itself to Death. That was my last book, which is available on Amazon.com. And Social Side, How America is Loving Itself to Death. And I'm speaking today about how our kids are being misdiagnosed in many cases today. And we're barking up the wrong tree, according to reports and studies on this stuff. A lot of our children are a large amount of our children are being diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, depression, bipolar disorder, rageful behavior, and inattentiveness in school and at home, because their brains are being conditioned to be overly stimulated by these video games that they're so addicted to. Okay, and this is happening, and conversely what's happening is we're diagnosing these kids with these other mental illnesses, and in some cases even giving them medications, when the answer is as simple as possibly and scientifically saying they need to fast from video games for a while and take a break. That actually has shown to reverse the process of the damage being done to our kids when they are so caught up and indulging themselves in video games all day long. Okay, so we see this apathy, we see this the agitation, we see the kids who are exhausted but also they're wide awake, and we're seeing their behaviors becoming very erratic. This speaks to me as a drug and alcohol counselor as someone who also could possibly be addicted to cocaine. And the studies have shown in the cases with children actually playing video games, when their mind and brain is scanned, compared to someone who is on cocaine, the kids' levels of dopamine and activity in the brain are raising as high or higher as a person who is under the influence of cocaine. So this is not a good thing. And what do we do with someone who is addicted to cocaine or any other drug? We want to help them get through it. They have to start detoxing from these things or fasting from it. And Dr. Dunkle, Victoria L Dunkle, just recently wrote a book about this, and she is saying this is exactly what needs to be done, that this will reverse the process and the damage done to our children when they are, their brains are very susceptible to electronic overstimulation. And now remember, our kids' brains are not fully developed, or should I say, our brains are not fully developed until we're about 24 years old. And all of this overstimulation, it causes all kinds of neurological screw-ups to occur where the behaviors are being reflected and their schoolwork is being reflected and their social behavior is being reflected as antisocial or somewhat problematic. So parents are panicking and they want to get their kids better, and they're taking them to doctors to give them pills or get therapy. But the real answer is to start to create what she calls a fasting from video games, which is what is seemingly working until you get your kids to a level where you're seeing normal behaviors return, and then allowing them some screen time as much as you see is fit, where the other symptoms of a mental illness do not return. I'm not saying kids should not play video games, We're not even mentioning that. So I know there's a lot of naysayers who will say, blah, 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 blah. But that's not the point, folks. And what I'm saying is we need to stop the over abuse of these things and let our kids be kids. And this is a bone of contention with me, and it has been for years, as I wrote about in Social Side. We are raising a generation of revved up, uninvolved, apathetic, and presumably mentally ill children who are depressed. And it's probably we're seeing those symptoms when they are not playing their video games, much like a cocaine addict when they have run out of their drug. Their mood swings and sometimes very unpredictable. And we're seeing this with our children. So what needs to be done is, as we as parents need to start monitoring how much time is actually we're allowing our kids to spend on these games. I have also read a study somewhere, and I don't have it in front of me or I can't remember it offhand, but what that study had said was that a kid who had any more than 45 minutes a day of screen or technology time would begin to do worse and worse in school and socially, emotionally, and in the family, as per how many minutes or hours over 45 minutes a day they have of screen time. So the more screen time over 45 minutes, the worse those symptoms get. Okay, now 45 minutes, you think my kid's never going to agree to this. Well, listen, if you start them young enough, they will. And, you are the boss and you are in charge. Now, 45 minutes is the standard. We can, your kid better than any of us, perhaps, an hour, perhaps a little more, a little less. They're not going to go, crazy if they have a little more than 45 minutes. However, it is a gauge to understand better how much time the professionals are recommending that have done these studies on how much time is safe where your child will not be affected. So anything over the 45 minutes a day is more dangerous waters. So the deeper you go, the more dangerous it gets. Okay, let's hopefully that's understood. But you will see a change in your children if you are able to take them away from their computer time and calling it a fast. And again, you might read up some resistance from this, but you are the boss and you are the parent, and you need to explain to your child that this is we're going to do an experiment that we want to see how you do. If we take some, a different measure when it comes to computer time, and you will see the change. Your child is not going to like it. Don't expect them to be happy about this, but you have to present it in a positive way. You can say you heard this video or you've done some research. You can look at Victoria L Dunkle's work. She's a psychiatrist in this field and an expert on getting our minds back. And she wrote "Reset Your Child's Brain." I do recommend that book if you're a parent and you are facing these problems. Reset Your Child's Brain by Victoria L Dunkle. Okay? Check her book out and check her work out, because what she says is making a lot of sense. Okay, and this has been going on now, according to my calculations and Social Side, slowly and progressively since 1978. And look at the generation we have produced here at this point in time. Our kids are very socially lacking and not adept or adapted to social situations, finding jobs, using creativity, speaking actually in person to other people. And we can also reflect upon the school shootings over the past few years, where it seems like seemingly all of these killers were video addicts. And their brains, of course, are who knows what. I think they're narcissistic and just evil. But they were also prescribed antidepressants, I think, each and every one of them. But I'll tell you what, those guys were nothing. They were not near depressed. They're psycho killers. And that's a whole different topic we will get to it in a later date. But I want to just make the connection here that the parents of those kids had them seen by probably their general practitioner doctor. Doctors misdiagnose all the time, and especially with kids. You got to be very careful diagnosing children, folks. Listen, this is something I learned a long time ago, and kids are kids. So you cannot just label them and with a diagnosis, because kids can change in a day, a week, a month. So like I'm saying here, these wackos who went on shooting sprees were at some point prescribed antidepressants for being depressed. Now, were they taking the medications or not? I don't know. But we do know that they were screen addicts. They spent much of their time socially isolated and on the computer, playing horribly violent video games and doing God knows what else online. So what they conjured up in their minds became slaughtering innocent children and adults. Now, will your kids do that? I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying we are not doing our kids any good when we allow them all this time online. Okay, they're not learning how to be human beings. They're not learning how to be social. They're not learning how to interact and be creative and use their own imagination. These are the things that can cause this mental illness, and we're, again, barking up the wrong tree. Children's brains are much more susceptible, okay, and sensitive to electronic use than most of us even realize. What goes on in that developing brain, if it's not being nurtured by other humans and parents, family, friends, other authority figures, and having fun and being outdoors, we're not helping them. They're becoming reclusive, computer dependent, or what I like to call technology dependent people who will never really meet their true potential. So we want to take a look. How much of your child's time is being spent online or on computer games? You think about it. What is their behavior like? Are they sleeping okay? Or are they up all night? Do they get their schoolwork done? Or are they getting good grades? Do they want to do things other than play video games? Do they want to go outside sometimes and breathe fresh air? This is what kids do. This is what we're born to do. And that curiosity level of children should be paramount. When we see kids today that don't want to leave the house because they want to play video games, we have a problem, because that's all they do. It's balance, folks. And again, I'm not saying you can't let your kids play video games, okay? I'm not. But we need to monitor very strongly the amount of time and exactly what kind of games they're playing. Because even just a small amount even of screen time can unbalance a child's sleep patterns, which is really necessary to have a functional life. If we're sleep deprived, we're not thinking clearly, where our judgment is off and everything is horrible. We're moody, we're cranky, and we're not going to feel motivated at all. But the studies do also indicate that even some screen time will affect the sleeping patterns of our kids. They just want to keep playing. They can't get enough in. Much like cocaine dependence. Okay, it just keeps going. Give me more. Okay, and it's a scary thing. And if we're seeing kids' brains functioning or responding to the stimulation of games as high or higher than someone under the influence of cocaine, don't you think that's a bit of a cause for an alarm? I do, and I think we need to watch that, because it's just important, and kids can't be allowed to judge for themselves what's good for them. And don't expect them to like it, but they will get used to it. Another thing screen time does is desensitizes the brain's reward system. It thinks we should have rewards constantly. Instant gratification. All the time. I kill, or I hit this one, I get a prize. I get another bullet. I get another bomb. I get more points. And the lights are flashing, and this is going on. Much like gambling. Okay, it works in a similar way, but I don't want to get too far off the topic. So our kids' reward system, when they're abusing screen time, is getting completely distorted. So they don't understand how to learn how to earn things for real. And they want, and they want now. This is a result of overexposure to video games, okay? That light at night thing, The lights at night, that has also shown to be a negative influence on our kids' developmental emotions and socialization. There's been studies done again with that, and that causes depression, and it causes a mixed up feeling of of worry. A kid can become very worried. There's been connections to worry and depression over those lights at night thing, and they've seen this done in animal testing. And even when they're not looking at the screen, if that light is on, it can certainly make a difference in a bad way. Okay, it induces stress reactions. We know that screen time induces stress reactions. Okay, because you got to get things done. You got to do it now. The stress is on. The pressure is on. I got to get past this board. And this is what the kid's developing mind. Do they need to be thinking in that kind of a way as a child? But that stuff gets implemented and implanted into them, where they're on edge and they're easily agitated, easy to act out and be nasty or mean, or mimic a mental illness, which is what I believe most of this is. Okay, and screen time overloads the sensory system. It fractures attention. It depletes reserves. Like I've spoken about in other videos, it depletes those reserves in our attention span. It depletes our reserves of natural antidepressants like serotonin. It gets it all fired up, and then when the video game is off, there is no serotonin left. It has to recreate itself, much like when someone's using cocaine. The brain stops doing its job of creating antidepressants because it doesn't think it has to. The cocaine is fooling the brain, much like video games fool the brain. So when you take away the simulated serotonin, the cocaine, or the video games, you have someone whose depleted reserves are causing them to act out in very undesirable, unproductive ways. And as a child, their brain is still developing. So there's a lot more to the video game madness than people are realizing, but maybe we are starting to realize it because it is all coming to light. And this is something we should all be aware of, and we should all be acting on to avoid bringing our children into doctors' offices for ridiculous prescriptions on ridiculous amounts of counseling, if that's not what they need. So this is what I'm suggesting. And now I don't say all kids don't need a medication at some point, or they don't need some kind of therapy, but that's another story. I'm saying if your child is overexposed to video games, and you will know that, and they're just demonstrating any kind of abnormal behaviors, it's always safe to have them seen by a doctor just to medically check them. But I wouldn't rush for the pills or the antidepressants, because that's not fixing the problem. That's like having a active cocaine addict continue in an outpatient counseling situation for cocaine addiction. If he's not stopping or she's not stopping, there's no point in the therapy. You see what I'm saying? So the answer lies at home, and it lies in the parenting, and you guys are the parents. So I'm giving you this sound advice based on fact, based on many, many tests and research. And I think it's really important that we do keep an eye on our kids. We want them to be healthy emotionally, socially, academically. We want them to be friendly and be creative and be able to think for themselves, do for themselves, speak for themselves. And that's what parenting is about. If we're not doing that, we're not doing our job. If we're putting our child in front of a screen and going about our business, we should not be parenting our children. And I'm sorry it comes across as coarse, but this is the truth. And I've gotten parents that have dropped their kids off at my office and said, "Here, please, sir, fix my child." After a while, I get to know what's really going on at home, and it's just this situation that I'm speaking about now. Parents aren't in tune with their kids. The kids are going to the screen for what they need, which is the last thing they really need. So please, think about that. Do your research for yourself. Take a look at your kids, see where they are on this, on the scale of how much screen time they're using versus how their behaviors are, and let's see if we can make a difference and start producing some functioning, happy kids with a little bit of computer games. Okay. Well, I appreciate you being here, and my name is Leo Battenhausen. This is Mender Online. Please visit our website at mindmenderonline.com. That's mindmenderonline.com. Please look at my books, Defeating Depression, The Common Sense Way to Find Happiness and Satisfaction, and Social Side, How America is Loving Itself to Death. Both are available on Amazon.com. My third book, Souled Out, SOULDOUBT, will be out shortly, and I'm looking forward to that. Thank you again for joining me here on Mender Online. I will see you soon. Have a great week.